Now that we have the new and improved iPad mini 2024 or 7th generation, how does it compare to the next one up in the iPad lineup, the iPad Air 11-inch? Well, there's a few things that make it pretty obvious which is the better option. So let's go ahead and get started. Starting price of the new iPad Air starts at $599 versus only $499 for the iPad mini. They both start with 128 gigabytes of storage now and go up to 1 terabyte for the iPad Air, 512 gigabytes for the iPad mini. Probably the biggest difference between these two is going to be the screen size at 8.3 inches for the iPad mini versus almost 11 inches for the iPad Air, with 2360 by 1640 resolution for the iPad Air, 2266 by 1488 for the iPad mini. Both of these are still 60 Hz refresh rate and have up to 500 nits brightness. Obviously the mini is going to be quite a bit lighter at about 293 grams versus 462 for the Air. When you put them next to each other, they're fairly close in contrast and overall screen quality, although to me the iPad Air seems to have slightly better viewing angles. Both look really good in my opinion though, so I don't think you can go wrong with either one when it comes to screen quality. You also have the Touch ID there on the power button for both iPads. The volume buttons are in slightly different locations though. Battery life is another category where it's pretty obvious on which one is better. The iPad Air lasted just over 5 hours versus 7.5 hours for the mini. Keep in mind I ran the same battery drain test at 100% screen brightness, so obviously you can get quite a bit longer than that, especially if you turn the screen brightness down. They both also have 20-watt fast charging, but yeah, if you want the iPad with the better battery life, you'll want to go with the mini. Now performance-wise, you've got the A17 Pro chip in the iPad mini, the M2 in the iPad Air. The iPad mini has a nice increase over the previous generation and actually beats the iPad Air in single-core scores, but the iPad Air is more powerful in multi-core scores and is about double the GPU performance with the new M2 chip. They also both have 8 gigabytes of RAM, so they're plenty powerful enough to do just about anything you would need to on a tablet, even some 4K video editing if you need to. But if you want the more powerful iPad, you'll want to go with the new iPad Air. I will mention it's easier to handle the iPad mini if you do a lot of gaming. It's just easier to reach things on the screen. And I've always felt 8-inch tablets are about the perfect size for gaming. But obviously if you're using a controller, you may want to lean towards the iPad Air. Now both iPads are on iPadOS 18.1 as far as software goes as of this video, so they're gonna feel pretty much identical, obviously smaller on the mini. Just keep in mind if Stage Manager is important to you, you're only gonna get that on the larger iPad Air. I also feel like the mini is just easier to handle if you do a lot of reading, just feels more like a book to me. For the most part though, everything else is going to be very similar. You can even now use the new Apple Pencil Pro on both iPads, along with the USB-C Apple Pencil as well, which is really nice for drawing, taking notes, or just moving around the software. I still feel like the iPad Air is probably a little easier to use an Apple Pencil with because of the larger display, but obviously that's going to be personal preference. Nice thing is both of these also have video out, so you can connect these to a TV, external monitor, or projector using an HDMI adapter, which for me I feel like is a must-have on all tablets. Now, one thing I sometimes forget to mention in these comparisons is the accessories you get for both iPads. There's quite a few options when it comes to cases for both, but I feel like you have better keyboard options for the Air, but of course you have several third-party options to choose from for both iPads. When it comes to the speakers, you will notice Apple tries to make it look like there's 2 speakers on each side. In reality though, there's only 1 on each side for both iPads. I don't know if it's just me, but the iPad mini seems a little louder, even though it's quite a bit smaller than the iPad Air. But here's a quick sample just to see if you can hear a difference between the two. As far as cameras go, you've got a 12 megapixel wide angle on the back of both iPads. You can also shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second for video recording on both. And then you've got a 12 megapixel ultra wide on the front of both iPads as well. Just keep in mind, for some reason, they're still keeping the front facing camera on the short end for the iPad mini, where it's on the long edge for the iPad Air. So that one's probably going to be a little easier to use for Zoom meetings or other video conference calls. But here's a few samples of each just to give you an idea of what to expect. To me, I feel like you can't really go wrong with either one when it comes to camera quality. So as you can see, there's definitely a couple categories where it makes sense to go with one over the other. Some of it's just going to be personal preference. There's really not much competition if you're wanting a small tablet, so it makes it pretty obvious to go with the iPad mini. But the larger iPad Air is also a nice option if you're wanting a larger screen. But it's definitely interesting to see. And the new iPad Air 11-inch. I'll definitely be doing some more comparisons with the iPad mini 7. Plus I have a lot more tablet videos I'm working on, so you'll want to keep an eye out for those upcoming videos. So if you've made it this far into the video, you may want to say thanks by subscribing, and don't forget to give a thumbs up if this video was helpful. This is Brian from Fishbee Productions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.